I was personally not a fan of inward-facing cameras due to, I think, the common concern of privacy for our drivers.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it only took 1 year for a driver to expose the fact that the cameras don't necessarily remain off while parked. In fact, he was parked for 13 hours and the cameras randomly came on.
I've been parked right here, Walmart. I parked this Walmart for 13 hours and my inward facing camera is on. Why is that on? Someone tell me that. There's nothing I do that would initiate that camera. It just, sometimes, like when I go off duty, I come up here and open up the curtains. Sometimes I'll be back there, making a smoothie or something, and I'll see both the green lights come on. I don't know what's initiating that.
All right, guys, before I begin, I took my glasses off because this light has this distracting little reflection in my lenses, and I don't want this video to be a distraction for you guys. I have to film it at night because I only have time to film it at night, so I apologize. But anyways, moving on with the rest of the video. If you guys weren't already aware, Prime Inc announced a partnership with Netradyne about a year ago. And if you aren't unfamiliar with that particular company, well, Netradyne is a company that specializes in AI inward-facing cameras, and these cameras track safety metrics such as falling distance, speed, acceleration, distracted driving, and of course, many drivers, they were against these AI inward-facing cameras, and in fact, the announcement was very unpopular and controversial. And the main concern for these drivers was the issue of privacy. In fact, I myself raised this issue of privacy in a video that I made about 4 months ago about the legality of these cameras. Personally, I think that having inward-facing cameras in a truck that you sleep in, that you dwell in, is unconstitutional. It violates your Miranda rights. But as I've mentioned, this announcement by Prime, the partnership, was so controversial and unpopular that to this day, I think that video is one of the only videos on their YouTube channel in which the comments are turned off. Now, one of the claims that Prime Inc reiterated multiple times was that the cameras do in fact shut off while parked. However, it comes out multiple times, the truth always comes to light, that these cameras are never actually turned off while parked. Now, I'm just go off on this little tangent and mention the fact that back in the day, Swift Transportation, they implemented inward-facing cameras. Of course, it was unpopular with the drivers. In fact, Swift was met with a lot of legal challenges to these inward-facing cameras, and that prompted them to remove the cameras from their truck. However, recently, Swift also announced a partnership with Netradyne. But what makes this time different is that they claim that the cameras are only going to track data on the outside and not the inside, and that the inward-facing cameras are going to, in fact, be off. You see a pattern here? But if the drivers are paranoid, they can cover the cameras with tape.
Will that lens still be facing inward? Because I know that was one of the questions. I know there's like a cap to put over it or something.
Yeah, so they'll come equipped with, there's the inward-facing camera, it's just a part of that piece of equipment, but it comes equipped with a cap over the inward-facing one, so it'll come with a cap on it.
And one of the questions I saw was, if I want to be double just secured, can I put a piece of tape over that cap?
Yeah.
Okay.
Make sure it's secured. Why not?
Now, at Prime Inc, the drivers are obviously not allowed to cover the cameras with tape. However, I'm starting to believe that covering it with tape doesn't necessarily make that much of a difference, because I feel like AI is advancing so rapidly that, Netradyne could just release this update in which the cameras can see through the tape. So covering the cameras with tape doesn't make that much of a difference. But let me know how you guys feel about that little conspiracy theory I got down in the comments below. Now, as for Driveline, he states that the issue of privacy is personally not a concern for him. Rather, the issue with the cameras comes into play because Prime Inc previously stated that they would not put cameras on the truck.
For a lot of different reasons. A lot of drivers have different reasons for them, for not liking them. For me, personally, privacy is not really the big issue for me. I can understand how it would be for some. For me, I just don't really, when I'm out here in the truck, I feel like a lot of my
personal privacy stuff is already kind of out the window. You know, I mean, you get a TWIC card and all that stuff. Like, there's just a lot of stuff that, you know, going to weigh stations and all. I just, for me, the bigger issue was that we were promised during my time at Prime that we would never have inward-facing cameras, and then they were just like, yeah, you know, we're gonna follow through with that promise. Change is a good thing, they say.
Now, I disagree with what he said in this clip for the simple fact that he's saying that privacy, that drivers pretty much give up privacy when they go to like weigh stations, dealing with DOT, etc. I don't think that's quite the same as a camera pretty much watching you 24/7, being on despite claiming that it's going to be off while you're parked for your resets. I just don't think it's quite the same, and I don't think that's a good enough argument. I just think there's just way too many perverts in the world, and unfortunately there have been cases of perverted dispatchers spying on vulnerable employees.
Supposed to be on for 15 minutes after you have shut down your truck, forward facing, so outside of the truck, they're supposed to be on for 15 minutes just in case something happens during that time. However, mine continues to stay on facing my cab while I'm getting undressed.
Personally, I feel that people do have the right to privacy, especially if they're teams and they're couples and they're trucking together. I mean, come on now, what do people that are in love, people that are couples, what do they do together in their private time? I'm just saying. But the fact that the cameras, if you guys didn't already know, the cameras don't automatically turn off when you park and turn off the truck. There's like some sort of waiting period or whatever. Technically, Prime Inc can still see what the couples are doing in their personal business while the trucks are parked for like a brief period of time.
If someone got a partner, or, you know, they got a wife and, you know, they love each other, so they're gonna have to, you know, they're gonna get, sometimes they just gonna get busy. And I was like, what about that? Like, will you guys, if that, let's say somehow you see that, how would that work? You know, he was like, well, he was like, I see where you're going with this. He was saying, you know, the cameras have a privacy mode. When the truck is turned off, after 10 minutes of the truck not moving, it goes into privacy mode, so nothing is recorded.
So yes, guys, you guys saw that, you heard that. Of course, truck drivers are entitled to privacy. That's their right. They live in this truck. They sleep in this truck. They work out of this truck. It's a 24/7 operation. So yes, they have the right to this constitutional right to privacy that the cameras are infringing upon, if I'm making sense. I feel like this person in his comment section actually called him out on this, and he basically said this: to say that privacy means nothing is spineless. To the rest of you, don't be the first generation to accept this. Man up. Shout out to him. And to be quite honest with you, I think that it may be too late. But there may be just a little bit of hope, because a few months ago, somebody actually commented on the video I made about the privacy issue and the legality of these inward-facing cameras. And he said something, while very inappropriate, it was actually pretty hilarious. He talks about how his company installed these cameras on his truck, but he decided to project corn, prawn, I can't say the actual word, but he decided to play that 24/7, and he also decided to drive around naked, essentially, in a jockstrap. And his actions were just so egregious that he was actually called into the office, and the company informed him that they were going to actually take the camera off his truck. So yeah, the one time that drivers actually win, shout out to you, and you're somebody that comments frequently on my videos. So yeah, you actually made my day, and it's actually still funny thinking about it right now. Now, as for the rest of the video by Driveline, I don't know his actual name. Comment down below what is his name, but he talks about how he wants to expand his fleet, but he has to be careful because the freight market is trash, etc. And one thing that he brought up that was interesting to me was the fact that he wanted to haul this Tropicana freight from Georgia to New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken, for $1.70 a mile. So yeah, that's actually pretty scary, because yeah, Prime Inc's freight is very cheap. Meanwhile, this is a reefer company, and despite freight rates plummeting, the average price for reefer freight nationwide is $2.26 a mile. So What is going on here?
Freight rates in the reefer market right now is $2.26 per mile, which is extremely low.
I'm currently sitting at the Prime Auburndale yard getting ready to deadhead up to Georgia. I had, believe it or not, I had a Tropicana load proposed to me as a pre-plan last night that may be one of the best Tropicana loads I've ever seen. This thing paid almost $1.70 a mile. Look, I know a lot of non-primers are going to be like, $1.70 a mile, that. Trust me.
So yeah, I just find this interesting. It's no offense to him, but people want to talk about how foreign truck drivers are bringing down the freight rates, but meanwhile, it's like, well, I feel like American truck drivers are complicit in their downfall. But hey, like I said, that's my opinion. I'm not trying to insult the guy. It is what it is. These rates are trash, and people got to do what they got to do to survive out here, even though it seems like these companies are starting to operate at a loss. But hey, before I end this video, I do want to say this. I'm glad that he at least knows not to question Prime Inc. as to why these cameras come on intermittently while he's parked, because he knows the answer is not going to be satisfactory, that they're basically going to give some lame BS cop-out answer. Take a look.
I haven't asked Prime about it. I don't really care to ask Prime about it because I don't believe that I'm going to get any kind of I don't believe I'm going to get any kind of a satisfactory answer. So it's like, to me, it just seems pointless.
But basically, somebody else in the comment section said this, basically, don't let them tell you that, oh, the cameras are updating, because that's probably going to be the fallback, the default excuse that they use as to why the cameras randomly come on despite being parked and the truck being off. But we all know the truth. The cameras are on 24/7. But yes, those are my thoughts and feelings about the truth actually finally coming out and being exposed, and that, the cameras are indeed on 24/7. Let me know your thoughts down below. You guys are the best audience on the internet. And if you enjoy content like this, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. I'm Tasia Woods, and I'll see you next time. I can finally put these glasses back on.